Have you ever, felt totally lost when your kid, is just having a meltdown? Like you've tried everything and nothing seems to work.
Yeah.
Well, today on the deep dive, we're going to be looking at this piece called Text Call, and it explores this surprisingly simple
Mm.
but like really effective tool for
Right.
these situations:
Okay.
the power of a hug. And we're going to try to go beyond just, the surface level of why a hug can be such a powerful tool to calm kids down during those tough times.
Yeah.
And, maybe more importantly, how you can actually use this knowledge in your own life.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking at the science behind it, some real world stories, and,
Right.
really bring this home.
Absolutely. I mean, a hug might seem like such a simple response,
Yeah,
but when you look at what's happening, beneath the surface,
right.
it's clear that it can be a really powerful way to navigate those really intense moments.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating to me is the immediate and almost biological impact that physical touch can have on our emotional state,
Okay.
particularly when we're feeling overwhelmed.
Okay, so let's dive into that beneath the surface part.
Okay.
Our source talks about the release of oxytocin during physical touch, which is that famous love hormone.
Right.
And for those of us who aren't, reading scientific journals every day,
Yeah.
what's the real world impact of this hormone when we're talking about a hug?
Well, you can think of oxytocin as your body's natural stress reliever
Okay.
and connection booster.
Okay.
It's a powerful hormone that really helps to reduce anxiety and promotes those feelings of trust and security.
Okay.
So a hug is like a natural, immediate dose of calm and connection. And
Hmm.
it's a really powerful antidote to the storm of emotions.
Yeah.
If we connect this to our very fundamental need for social interaction and feeling safe,
Yeah.
it starts to make a lot of sense why a gentle embrace can be so effective.
Yeah. And this isn't just, wishful thinking, right? There's actual research that backs this up.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The source mentions Dr. Paul Zak and his findings on oxytocin.
Hmm.
What did his research tell us specifically about the impact of a hug?
Yeah, Dr. Zach's research really highlights the tangible effects of hugging.
Okay.
He found that a hug actually causes a measurable increase in oxytocin levels
Okay.
in both the person giving and the person receiving the hug.
Wow.
So both people benefit.
Okay.
And this boost leads to those feelings of well-being and security that we
Yeah.
associate with being comforted.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful example of reciprocal benefit.
Yeah.
Both individuals experience positive physiological changes through this simple act.
That's incredible.
It is.
So when a child is in the throes of a full-blown tantrum,
Right.
when like their world is ending,
Yeah.
how does this oxytocin release triggered by a hug actually help them in that moment of intense emotion?
Well, it's really important to understand what's happening in a child's brain during a meltdown.
Okay.
Essentially, they're shifting into that fight or flight mode.
Right.
And when that happens, the more rational parts of their brain kind of,
Yeah.
they take a back seat.
Okay.
So a hug in this situation, it acts as a direct nonverbal signal of safety to their nervous system.
Okay.
It's cutting through the emotional chaos,
Right.
and it's communicating on a fundamental level. You are safe, you are loved, you are okay.
Yeah.
And that physical embrace triggers the release of oxytocin,
Right.
which then helps to counteract the stress response and create a sense of calm and security.
It makes perfect sense
Yeah.
because, trying to reason with a child in that state is,
Oh, it's impossible.
it's impossible.
It's impossible.
So instead of trying to logic our way through it,
Right.
we're offering this physical anchor of safety.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay, we understand the science behind it. Now, how do we actually put this into practice when a child is having one of these emotional explosions?
Right.
And the source gives a step-by-step guide, which is really great for our listeners.
Yeah.
The first step is simply to offer the hug.
Yeah, just offering it is so important
Right.
by asking, would you like a hug?
Yeah.
You're giving the child a sense of agency,
Okay.
even when they're completely overwhelmed.
Right.
And this simple question can sometimes be enough to interrupt the intensity of that outburst,
Okay.
because it's an invitation, not a demand.
Right. But what happens when they say no? Because let's be real,
Yeah.
a child in the middle of a meltdown might not be feeling particularly cuddly.
Right.
So step 2 addresses this.
Okay.
If they decline, the suggestion is to gently say, I need a hug.
Mm.
And this feels like a subtle but potentially very powerful shift in the dynamic.
Yeah.
Why might expressing your need for a hug make a difference?
Well, by shifting the focus to your own need,
Yeah.
you're changing the interaction. It moves away from the child feeling like they're being forced to do something.
Hmm.
And it introduces this element of mutual connection.
Okay.
Sometimes a child who is resisting comfort for themselves
Mm-hmm.
might be more receptive to the idea of providing comfort to someone they love.
Yeah.
It can be a way for them to feel helpful and connected in that moment of distress.
Yeah, that's a clever reframing.
Yeah.
Okay, and what if they still refuse, even after we say, I need a hug?
Yeah.
This is where step 3 comes in,
Right.
and it might feel a little counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Give them space.
Mm.
The advice is to say something like, I need a hug, come find me when you're ready,
Okay.
and then actually step away.
Yeah.
Why is creating that physical distance important? Aren't we worried that they might feel abandoned?
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of respecting their emotional process.
Okay.
Even though they are upset,
Right.
they still need to feel a sense of control and the space to process their feelings
Mm-hmm.
in their own way.
Okay.
By giving them that space, you're actually communicating trust in their ability to eventually regulate, even if it doesn't seem like it in that moment.
Okay.
It avoids a potential power struggle
Right.
and sends a clear message that comfort is still available
Yeah.
without pressure when they're ready to seek it.
And the source shares a really encouraging statistic here.
Yeah.
It mentions that in the majority of cases, around 9 times out of 10,
Wow.
a child who initially refuses will actually come seeking that comfort within just a few minutes.
That's incredible.
That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
What do you think happens in that short period that leads to that change?
I think it's often a combination of factors.
Okay.
The intensity of their emotions is likely starting to subside,
Right.
and that initial surge of the fight or flight response starts to lessen.
Okay.
Also, knowing that the offer for comfort is still there without any strings attached
Right.
allows them to come to that decision on their own terms.
Yeah.
They've had a moment to process their feelings.
Oh.
And then they realize that what they truly need in that moment is that connection and reassurance.
Mm-hmm.
And this high success rate really underscores this key insight.
Yeah.
Often the most effective way to connect is to first respect that need for space.
This is all incredibly helpful in theory, but it's the real-life examples that really make it resonate.
Totally.
The source provides 2 really powerful stories.
Yeah.
Let's start with Sarah and her 4-year-old son.
Okay.
She tried offering a hug during a meltdown, was turned down twice.
Yeah.
She gave him space,
Yeah.
and then just 2 minutes later, he came to her crying. And it sounds like this became her go-to strategy.
Oh, wow. What does Sarah's experience teach us?
Well, I think Sarah's story illustrates the effectiveness of respecting her son's timing.
Yeah.
He wasn't ready for physical comfort in that immediate moment of intense emotion,
Right.
but knowing that the offer was there
Right.
and that his mom wasn't going to force it.
Yeah. Allowed him to process his feelings and then seek connection when he felt ready. It highlights that an initial refusal isn't necessarily a rejection of love,
Right.
but maybe just a need for a pause to navigate those really big emotions.
Absolutely. And then there's Mark, the single dad, whose daughter was really struggling with bedtime.
Mm.
Similar scenario, a hug was offered, then refused space was given. And within just 5 minutes, she climbed onto his lap for a tight hug and whispered, I just needed time. And what's so telling is that bedtime went so smoothly afterwards.
Yeah.
What's the takeaway from Mark's experience?
Well, I think Mark's story underscores that sometimes children just need that moment
Yeah.
to experience their feelings without intervention.
Okay.
It also shows how meeting those underlying emotional needs in those moments of distress can actually prevent further issues down the line. The fact that bedtime went smoothly afterwards suggests that the hug helped resolve the underlying tension and frustration
Right.
and allowed her to move forward.
These stories really emphasize that children just often need to know that that door to comfort is open and
Right.
they will choose to walk through it when they're ready.
Exactly.
So let's delve a little deeper into why this approach seems to be so consistently effective.
Okay.
The source outlines a few key underlying reasons.
Yeah.
The first is that it respects the child's autonomy. Why is that so crucial, particularly when they seem to be completely overwhelmed and not in control of their emotions?
Well, respecting a child's autonomy, even when they are emotionally dysregulated, sends a powerful message that you see them as an individual
Okay.
with their own valid feelings and needs.
Right.
When children feel forced or controlled, it can actually escalate their distress and lead to further resistance.
Okay.
By offering a choice about the hug and the space to decide when they are ready for comfort, you're validating their internal experience and empowering them in a small but significant way, which can help them regain a sense of control.
The second reason highlighted is that it shifts the dynamic. Instead of the parent trying to fix the emotions, they are modeling emotional regulation. How does offering a hug, even if it's initially turned down, demonstrate healthy ways of coping with big feelings?
Well, by offering a hug and then respecting their boundaries, if it's refused, you're demonstrating that it's okay to have big feelings and that connection and support are always available.
Okay.
You're not punishing them for their emotions or trying to immediately suppress them. You're showing them a healthy way to seek and offer comfort. And by expressing your own need for a hug, you're also modeling vulnerability and the importance of connection for emotional well-being. It's a really subtle but powerful lesson in emotional intelligence.
And the third point is that it builds connection. It suggests that hugs can repair those emotional ruptures that happen during conflict and strengthen the bond with your child over time. How does this work in practice, especially after a moment of intense emotion or disagreement?
A hug is such a powerful form of nonverbal communication that conveys love, reassurance, and acceptance. After an emotional outburst, both the child and the parent might feel a sense of disconnection or emotional distance. The hug, when it's eventually accepted, acts as a bridge. It repairs that rupture and reminds the child that they are loved and supported unconditionally, even when they are struggling. It reinforces the security and strength of the parent-child bond.
Now, here's a really interesting point that the source makes that kind of extends beyond parenting. It suggests that this technique isn't limited to children. It proposes trying it with adults, partners, friends, siblings, by simply saying, I need a hug. It really makes you think about how often we all might benefit from that simple physical connection, regardless of our age. Absolutely. The need for connection and the benefits of oxytocin aren't just, for kids. In adult relationships, expressing a need for a hug can be a vulnerable but really effective way to seek comfort and reassurance without necessarily needing to explain every little detail of what's causing distress. It can be a really direct and powerful route to feeling supported and understood.
Okay, so let's bring it all together for our listener.
Okay.
We've taken a really deep dive into the power of a hug. Especially in those challenging moments with children. We've explored the science behind it. How hugs trigger that release of oxytocin. We looked at a step-by-step approach for offering hugs during tantrums. And how respecting refusal and even expressing your own need for a hug can shift the dynamic. And we've seen how giving space can often lead to a child seeking comfort when they are ready.
Exactly.
And, this isn't just about managing behavior in the moment.
It's about fostering a deeper connection and teaching emotional regulation from a place of love and understanding.
It's about moving beyond simply reacting to behavior and instead addressing the underlying emotional need. By understanding the science and applying these practical steps, you're not just navigating tantrums. You're actually building a stronger, more trusting relationship with your child, one hug at a time.
So here's a final thought for all of you listening. We focused on children today, but think about all the other relationships you have in your life, your partner, your friends, your family. The next time someone you care about is going through something difficult or even just seems a little off, I encourage you to try this. Offer a hug. And if they don't seem receptive, initially try gently saying, I could really use a hug right now. And pay attention to the impact no matter how subtle it is. It really makes you wonder how this simple, often overlooked gesture, this power of a hug, can have such profound effects on our emotional well-being and the strength of our connections with others.
I think this brings up a really important question for all of us.
Yeah.
In a world that so often prioritizes words and solutions, how can we be more intentional about incorporating the language of touch into our interactions to build deeper connections and offer comfort in a truly meaningful way.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound communication happens without saying a word. That's it for today's deep dive.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening.
My pleasure.